was working in our medical reading shop. And so we laugh because like she still does the same thing where like she's cooking and hosting folks, and then so just kind of that vibe was throughout the space.
Hey, they didn't think I would do it, but I did it. Really having it, really winning. Was times that I thought I'd forever be sinning and spending whatever to stand on the business. But God bless the game, did it all but a sin. All the shots they let off, but they ain't hitting. All the shots we let off, they ain't mentioned was hitting. Go ask why he's fighting them limping. Never change, I'm the same as just in me. The only thing changes the paper my vision. Can't forget about the diamonds and chains on my pendant was starving, but now we each stay for a living. If we ever fell out, you was fake or switch sides, don't be standing up. But yet I'm the biggest, ain't changing my click rep to 6 disrespect and get put in that dick.
I won't let them change me.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Basement Club Podcast. I'm your host, the NC with the most, Sergeant Philip Taylor. And who we got stopping by the clubhouse today is a guy that, who took on, my invite. He's a native of Orangeburg, South Carolina. He is the Senior Enlisted Leader for the 66th Medical Group here at Hampton Air Force Base. He was the 48th Medical Group Airman of the Year, the 2010 Air Force Medical Service Medical Expeditionary Operations Airman of the Year, the 2009 Air Force Medical Service Outstanding Enlisted Health Services Management Airman of the Year, the 2011 John Little winner, the 2012 AETC Small Unit Honor Guardsman of the Year, the 2013 AETC Outstanding Enlisted Health Services Management NCO of the Year, 2017 48 Medical Group NCO of the Year, 2020 412th Medical Group Senior NCO of the Year, and he was also the 2022 Air Force Senior NCO DG Award recipient. Make some noise for SMSgt Robert Rivers.
Oh man, appreciate you. That's I feel like I ran back down like remember like man. And then what's crazy is like, you talk about folks being professional in the space, and just doing homework, right?
Yeah.
So like, I was like, yo, all right, cool. It's good to be here, man. I know, just chopping it up from a lot of different things. So it's good to sit down, just have a conversation.
Do you kind of feel like, I don't know, because when I hear people talk about things that I've done, it kind of feels like they're reading off a eulogy. They like I'm dead. You know what I mean?
Nah, like so people talk a lot about like handing folks flowers.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's humbling is like you roll back through the memories of like what's happening in those spaces.
Right.
People who you interacted with,
right.
Folks who have helped you along the way. So yeah, if anything, it's just you rolling down memory lane.
Got it. So, like I read from South Carolina. I'm from Mississippi, so two Southern boys here. So growing up in South Carolina, what was it like? What was the childhood like for a young Robert Rivers growing up?
I mean, so what's interesting or what you think about is just like simple was probably the word that I have. Because it was just not a lot of things that you would worry about, right? Like biggest thing that we were looking at, play sports growing up was just, Friday nights, Saturday mornings, review sports, stuff like that. Life was a whole lot less expensive, and so we had a 5 and dime in our town, right? So the things that kind of resonate when I think about like growing up is just that life was pretty simple. And so when you think about community stuff now, like we had people who were from the community who were doing things to try to help.
Right.
I think about the Jeffries. I think about folks like Frank Highland. So just think about like people who were kind of involved, teachers, stuff like that. So they lived in the community and from the community. Yeah. So summers were like we just did stuff in the neighborhood.
So I know you said you played sports. What were some of the sports that you did? Football, basketball, baseball. What was your first love?
So basketball probably. I played basketball all the way through going to college. I think basketball was like the sport. And then football was kind of like what you did to get ready for basketball. Right. Like initially. And then we played soccer because that was a youth thing. Coach Lapierre, Jesus, um, was from South Africa, I think. So came, built a whole like youth program from scratch, and kind of got a lot of us involved. So we did that all through high school. But then like my focus kind of shifted. I'd say 10th, 11th grade into football, and really shifted. Coach Farmer. In 12th grade. So I wound up playing football, and then getting a scholarship to play football in college.
Nice.
Which was weird because I'm probably 50 pounds heavier now than I was in high school. So just, yeah. But yeah, a lot of time spent on football fields, basketball courts, for sure.
So you say you went to college.
Mm-hmm.
What was the driving force behind you going joining the Air Force? I know for me.
Oh man, so yeah, that's a couple of years down the road.
Yeah.
College point. I wouldn't say that coming out of high school, coming out of Denmark, especially so I graduated in 03. Right, 9/11 happened a few years prior. Military wasn't necessarily on my forefront.
Right.
So the college piece was really, in college to play football particularly, was just because I remember somebody in my high school, like, you get letters, right, like the generic ones that they send when you're in kind of the recruiting spaces and your name's kind of floating around.
Right.
And then the coach would have them, you just all this thing. I was like, you can't play, like, you can't play football next level, right?
Right.
Mind you, I'm probably like 140 pounds. So,
Yeah.
And so just kind of took that on as like a challenge. And so, some things came down. Offers came down. Just in college, was in college to play football on scholarship, and then like, if you remember a different world, you get to school and then it's just different. Like, high school was easy, but I think the hardest part in college was like just trying to navigate what it is that you really want to do. So it was a lot of discovery. So you fast forward 3.5 years, my brother-in-law is the reason why I joined the Air Force. So my brother-in-law had joined, and then like my niece was born. And I'm like, yo, like, I'm about to graduate from college. GPA wasn't amazing. I was working like 3 jobs at the time, so it's crazy to think about. But then, like, I was working at Finish Line, and my manager had just graduated college. But he managed Finish Line. And, like, no knock to him, or no knock to Finish Line. But that just hit me different. Like, and then I go see my brother-in-law, I'm like, okay, this life look a lot different than that. And so the pivot was starting over. And so, yeah, joining was really about, like, just trying to be a better me in this next phase. And so just took the Air Force serious. And so, yeah.
What was that initial conversation? You know, at least for me, you know, college was everything, especially to my parents, especially my grandparents. They're old school. You know what I mean? It's like you go to college, you get your degree, you know, that's going to be that. What was the conversation like when you told your family, like, hey, you know, I'm about to graduate college, instead of pursuing my master's or whatever was going to be next, I want to join the Air Force. Like, what was that initial reaction to that?
So I don't. So my mom, I do remember the one thing my mom said to me was like, because I didn't finish before I joined. So the one thing that she said to me was just like, "You're going to finish." I was like, well, yeah, right? Like, I think so. And so that was really it. Like, my dad has always kind of just been super calm and collected about stuff, and so there wasn't a whole lot there. But yeah, my mom was super. She was super adamant about that, and so, yeah, I didn't finish until like 4 years later or something crazy, and I was like 2 classes away from finishing, but I finished. So yeah, I got my mom off my back.
you know, when you leave for the Air Force, or whenever you're doing something big like that, you leave a lot of people behind.
Yeah.
Did you have any, I guess, resentment from maybe past friends, past acquaintances, where they thought, oh, you about to, you know, you might think you're better than me because you're about to go and do all these things? Like,
I mean, I'm like, so small town for me, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, I went home, so, my first TV station was in England.
yeah,
So, right, like, the amount of time we're going home as an A1C from over in England,
zero.
like,
Yeah,
yeah. And so, I went home last, and what was kind of cool, I guess, is as we started moving a lot more to, which sounds crazy to think about, like smartphones,
yeah,
and then a lot of like Facebook and all that stuff like that. Like you can keep in touch with folks.
yeah,
And so for some folks, truth be told, like I haven't seen some of my friends in double-digit years, but you know, talk to folks enough to where like you can step into spaces, and especially if I'm home and around, then it's pretty easy.
yeah,
So, not really left behind. I think one of the things, like, my brother was still young enough to be in a space where he was trying to figure it out, and so not being as close, I wouldn't say regret, but just we had to figure that out.
yeah.
But yeah, technology has been helpful for sure.
So when you do go back home, is it warm reception? Like, hey, what's going on? Like, how is it when you go back home now?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, there's been a couple times where I just miss folks.
Yeah,
Like I'm there for this time frame, and then like didn't get a chance to see him. But I haven't gotten any that I can think of at least like negative reception.
yeah,
Just had a 20th graduation like anniversary last year, not this past, so 23.
right.
And went home for homecoming.
Yeah,
That was the first homecoming I had been to since I graduated. And you know, a lot of stuff has changed, but like, yeah, no issues. It was, again, folks I hadn't seen in years, and so one of the things that I am like just thankful about is I never really was one of those people that like just kind of cast off folks.
Yeah.
And so my energy was never in that space.
right.
So yeah, no issues.
Okay. So fast forward, you get the basic training in 2007. June 2007, you get the basic training. What is your initial thought? Like as soon as you get off the bus and get to reception, what was your initial thought when you first walked into that environment?
I mean, so my brother-in-law had been through it.
Yeah.
My recruiter did a really, so he didn't lie. He didn't lie. So he did a good job of just kind of explaining stuff. And so, you know, like when you play sports, some of the things that are happening, and you're just like, you know, you're rolling through it, right? I think I was of the mind frame like, man, like I know some people that have kind of gotten through this. By then, I have been able to at least get on base to do some stuff.
Right.
We used to play basketball actually when I was in Charleston at Charleston Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
So like seeing some folks and like you just put it in your mind like, all right, if they got through this, I can do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing that was crazy. It's interesting too because I did join right out of high school, and so you got kind of the gambit of folks. I remember one of the guys that wound up being on a flight, like we kind of arrived around the same time frame. Hit the bathroom where they're like, oh, go shave. And, you know, folks ain't got nothing on their face. Roll around the corner and like, folks catch me. So I was like, it's crazy. But it was wild. You just got folks crying in the mirror like,
Bro, my first night, the guys in the day room, we were doing something. I think we were doing high knees or something like that. Dude fell out next to me. And I told my NTI, like, look, man, I don't think I can do this anymore. I gotta go home. Like, this man is acting on the floor. The man fell out on the floor, you know what I mean? It was, like you said, people walking around, blood all over people's faces, and
just also like the variety of like where folks were in their life.
Yeah.
And so, one of the dudes rolled up and then like he just got the razor. We about to say no water. Like, hey man, like you gonna have to, this dry saving ain't working. We wound up, like I said, we wound up in the same class. So you just gotta take close on your wing. And then yeah. I spent most of my time basically like laughing. I was telling, what was funny too is I was telling Mr. Recorder the other day,
Yeah.
because he had been at basic training, knew a lot of the folks that were there, like my TI was new, so he was like, oh, I know him. And I was like, yeah, he was cool. Like our brothers like TI, and the stuff that they got up to, just because it was a lot younger,
Right.
in there, right? And so you got a lot of, to watch them more were like, our element leaders were all like 20s, and I was a guy in there, so like I'm at the front, like,
Yeah.
so I got like almost in trouble, but like my TA used to come like, you can't be laughing at the front. He would do crazy stuff, just crazy stuff. And so you just laugh, but yeah, it was a good time, and a lot of folks probably would say basic training wasn't the worst thing was just like it was just that San Antonio heat, and so being from Charleston, you get like humidity in
Right.
July, and so I'm at basic training in July, June, July,
Dry.
but like it's hot.
It's a
Right, and then you just
yeah.
so we spent a lot of time in the day room. Spent a lot of time in the day room, but it was cool. I think looking back to I don't remember the command chief, right?
Yeah.
But I remember what he said. Day one of like you sit in a large auditorium, and it was like in a few months everybody will be at war, and you need to make sure you pay attention and all this stuff. And so you got a couple folks that's in there for the very reasons.
Yeah.
But man, that room sobered up real fast when he said that, and so it set the tone, I think,
Mhm.
also for like, all right, folks won't take this serious.
Right.
Some people,
Mhm.
that was the case.
Mhm.
For most of us in that room, not the case. Some folks have freaking year-long texts. So, but it one of those things that just like zone you in to what's happening. But we got a lot. I remember when I went back first time.
Yeah.
Like, you don't realize you're traumatized until
Man.
like I'm a whole NCO at this point, like, and you're on the basic training side, and it's like trainee, like I know it's not me,
Yeah.
but like
Institutionalized, you like crazy.
but yeah, man, like it's a good time. Black one's good time.
So you graduate on a grad, by the way. Congratulations. So you graduated. Did you kind of feel you talked about how, the command chief said, hey, you guys are going to be at war in the next few months.
Yeah.
Did you kind of feel when you left there that your soul has been changed? You know what I mean? A lot of people say that once they leave basic training, they leave a piece of them behind there. They pick up this new mindset, this new attitude. Did you feel that change within yourself when you left basic training?
I don't know. I don't know if that was. I think the 6 weeks was like
Mhm.
you just got to get through these 6, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not this is hard, necessary.
Yeah.
But you just got to get through these 6 weeks, and then so it was unknown because okay, after I graduated these 6 weeks, I don't think I fully grasped like you go straight to continue training, right? Like,
Yeah.
all right, 6 weeks, I'm done, we graduate, cool. And they're like, hey, you can get base liberty for like a couple of days, then you're on a bus. Bus to where? Like, where we going? What's happening? Like, so I just don't know if I grasped it
Yeah.
fully. And then so, yeah, you just get on the bus for the long ride to Shepherd. I don't know if it was there yet.
Yeah.
Like it's this whole like change because
Yeah.
again, right? Like the things that I took away was obviously like okay, if I found myself in a situation where I have to do things, then I need to make sure that I'm ready, right? Like
Right.
from a personal note, I just got here, right? Like
Right.
can't be gone. And so yeah, in my mind, I think it was still very like, all right, I learned some stuff, cool. I know some things about the Air Force, and didn't realize how much yet. I think of just like nerding out about different things. And
Right.
so I think, yeah, that took some time.
Get through tech school, graduate tech school. Your first base is England,
Mm-hmm.
which is congratulations. What was A1C Rivers like in England?
Man, so if you ask a couple of different people, you probably have a couple of different stuff up. So I think I I remember they had the like at tech school they had the tapes that show you like so base had like the base video.
Yeah.
First of all, it was on VHS, so that was telling.
Yeah.
And then like I was like, man, why does it look like it's like just out of the 70s? And so England was we land at Heathrow.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Powers was my sponsor. He came to get us from the airport. And so 2 hour or so ride from Heathrow to the base.
Yeah.
First of all, like I'm from South Carolina.
Yeah.
I got an old passport now. Like I'm in another country.
Yeah.
I made it, right? Everyone see me like I made it. So, but we get to the base, and you know, you go through newcomers, and you're getting settled. And I fell in love with that mission.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like it was there where like, okay, this is it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think fighter wing tempo, fighter wing environment.
I love it. I love it.
It was you get it, right?
Yes.
And throughout various times of the day,
Yeah.
you hear it,
Yes.
right? And everything that goes into whether you're getting 2 or 4 jets off the runway, from healthcare to service, like you get it.
I guess it too.
It was one of those that like pride came with that, and all the history and heraldry with a number of wing as well as having its own like a named wing as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I those 3 years were I'm sold now, right? Like I'm in.
Yeah.
And so I think A1C me was really just like going back to kind of where I joined up. I wanted to start over and I wanted to do well.
Mm-hmm.
So A1C me just kind of wanted to do well.
Yeah.
And learn as much as I can and do as much as I can. So I think that was more prevalent, I would say. Once like, okay, this is the mission. Yeah, I can get behind this. So yeah.
You talk about the wing, and you know, it just brought me back. You know, my first base was Japan.
Okay.
So, you know, being from Mississippi going to Japan, you know what I mean? I had this thing. So, a funny story. So, when I first found out I was going to Japan, I was in tech school. Our tech school was in Missouri at an Army base.
Yeah.
So, I was in tech school, and it said, hey, your assignments dropped. Go check out your assignments. And I logged in, and I saw it. I was like, what the hell is Missile with JP? What is that? Like, where am I going? You know what I mean? They're like, no, one of my boys, like, this Masao, fool, we going to Japan. I'm like, Japan? So my first initial thought, I did not want to go. I didn't want to go. Because, you know, not knowing what you know what I mean? Not knowing what you don't know. Like,
Yeah.
Japan, that's, might as well be on another planet, right? But, you know, I get there, I get around good people, and you talk about the mission. We had 15s and 16s at our base. Just hearing it every day. Hearing them scream every day, flying over. It's like, that's what, you know, it gets your blood pumping.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it gets you going. And that goes into my next question. What was the camaraderie like, you know, being overseas in England?
So, yeah, we like it's interesting. You're in a country like right, like where you're not necessarily having to learn the language, but you have to learn the language.
Right.
But I like senior airman at the time come and grab me from the airport, right? You get to base and then folks are like, it is very much built in a way and expects as a family. Funny, funny story. Miss Moran, who was our RA, was my flight chief over there when I was working in our medical readiness shop. And so we laugh, it's like she still does the same thing where like she's cooking and hosting folks, and then so just kind of that vibe was, you know, throughout the space. It was very much you worked hard, but everybody came together, and so you know, Air Force clubs, private orgs, like everything that was happening on the base was a kind of a food type thing. Like we were building it, and we were running it, right? Like so, it was a really good environment to start, because for me, that's how I portrayed the Air. Like, okay, the Air Force is like this, bet, like and I remember saying super early on, like within weeks again, the base, like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna do this until I retire. Like, I don't even know, like a lot here. It's like it's first base. Like, wait, nah, I'm good. So yeah, it was a really good environment, I would say.
So, go to England, first base. You moved back to the States. Now you're married. At what point did you meet your wife?
So before we man, 06. So we were working at French Line. And so I met her there. So yeah, we went over to England together.
How has she been an integral part of your career up to this point?
I mean, so what's awesome is just like we've always kind of had a friendship that transcends, and so she's always been super supportive. If I'm and I am all over the place a lot of times. So it's always been super supportive. I think even in learning how to slow down, because again, for me, like this is the second time, like, or felt like a second chance. So learning when to slow down and not be like go all the time. Bringing some type of balance to what it is that I try to do. So yeah, like it's also going to be the accountable person. Like you're supposed to be off. Supposed to be here at this time frame. When did we take lead? Like so, just stuff like that. With different things, ideas, stuff like that.
So, leave England, you get to Randolph. You get your first taste of leadership when you become NCOIC. What was that initial wave of emotions? Okay, now I have this power, I have this responsibility. You know, how did that, I guess, change the way you're thinking at that moment?
I think the leadership piece was like a privilege, right? And even how I see it now, like here, you know, here's a chance that everything that I know about the Air Force, I get a chance to impart it, right? But to be able to affect somebody and have a positive impact, like take, you know, that as serious as a mission. So I think for me it was a great opportunity for sure. My first Emily motto was awesome. I couldn't have asked for a better start for somebody. She was a self-starter. Really took to learning and understanding the job. They sent me to honor guard. In the way that we were doing honor guard rotation, I was gone for a month. So supervising it for the first time, but for a month, every quarter, I am not in my work section, right? And so, motto was great as an A1C for holding it down. And so, yeah, man, Martin. So my ALS instructor, and we're really still cool to this day. Had this like, hey, and back when they were sitting down, like, hey, this is what you do with feedback, these are the forms.
Yeah.
And so buying into all of that stuff and just took that to heart, right?
Yeah.
So I got to know my airmen, her family,
Mhm.
all of those things. And I think that time, like taking the time to really invest in feedback
Right.
and understanding what are the things that people want to do. Where do you see yourself? What weaknesses? Like before we got super in depth with the ACA, like
Yeah.
there was extra information that just helped do the job better.
Right.
So yeah, it wasn't so much about the power as it was like now I have to be of service. Now I have to be on point. Now I have to be a model of what needs to happen. So
Right.
I got to witness a lot of success for me, but I got to witness a lot of success for her at the Center wedding. Like there was things that I think that were a lot of how we started, and so to credit a lot of really good people for that.
Yes, sir. So I know we talked about, being overseas, the camaraderie is a bit different. You know what I mean? It's a bit more of a family atmosphere. Coming back overseas, coming back from overseas, going to Randolph, I believe San Antonio.
It was a little different.
So how did you adjust to that? Going from everybody putting their arm around you, like come over. Now you're back in the States. People have their own lives. People are going out and doing their own things. Like, how did you figure out how to bring that, I guess, that camaraderie piece back to a certain extent too, without being, I guess, overbearing?
I remember, so the fight team I had before I left, Master Sergeant Davis at the time, Aaron Davis. I remember calling her within a couple weeks when I got there, and I was like, yo, just don't feel the same. Right? Just don't feel the same. And partly because you just got a lot of folks, like you said. Life is just different, at Randolph. It was an interesting time too because it was right as we were trying to stand up Joint Base San Antonio.
Yeah.
So when I first got my assignment, I was going to the 12th Flying Training Wing, right? And then an amendment to the order is like 350. What is the 359? Like, you're going somewhere different. It's like, no, same place. Just reorg, right?
Yeah.
And so you get there and you're learning things as it goes, but just a slower pace. You're at a headquarters base, and then so it was a lot of things that were happening. 2010, so 2011. 'Cause I got back late 2010. So 2011, the reorg happening or starting to turn a little bit, and JBSA 2012 sequestration. Like, so you just did 2013, 2014. You got what we like to call the mass exodus of NCOs. So like, it's just a lot of stuff that was happening in space. But found ways to like still build stuff within the flight. And then, like I said, like, private org involvement a lot different, but you still have some things there that people were pressed in. I was there with when Chief Juan Lewis, the fired up chief, the command chief.
Yes, sir.
And so just found ways to just kind of connect, stay involved, and promote, push things as we needed to. So made the best of it, for sure. Like I worked in 2 sections while I was there. The last section was kind of my real first, because I had civilians on about like first time with like civilian contractor, and then really doing NCLC flight chief type work because we were a small flight.
Right.
And so we would go to crowd with like, hey, we're going to lunch and we're going to go to crowd. And that was the thing because it was right down Pat Booker. So we just found ways to make it work.
So you go back to England.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to England for a little bit. You're doing your thing, NCOIC. You make it happen. You leave England and you go to Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you get your first taste of the SCL life. Going from NCOIC flight chief to an SCL, now you're over an entire squadron. What was that like?
during COVID.
During COVID. Got to throw that in. During COVID.
So, I think what our chief administrator, when I was in England leaving, had put like a thought in my head. 'Cause I think she had been out there at some point before. She was like, if you're going there because mastering at the time, then you might be at SEL. I'm like, I'm not. Like, no, right? Like, and so you just think about, you know, if you ever feel ready for a position, like, you absolutely are not ready.
Yeah.
If that's the thing that you go with, right? So there definitely was doubt about being able to do it and do it justice. And so before you get into SEL stuff, right? Like we still have superintendents, and so you're trying to like, what is it that I'm supposed to do?
Right.
And I've seen like chiefs, right? I've been in places, I was in England twice.
Yeah.
So you see like chief seniors do this, but like as a master sergeant, and then rolling into a space where COVID, we had a whole bunch of organizational change stuff happening. But thankful you can reach out to folks, right? So at this time, my brother-in-law has already done SEL work. And then my previous supervisor has done some SEO. So you're reaching out to your network and you're relying heavily on your network to make that happen. But I had a really great commander, man. Like, I was picked to do it after she got in there. So I think some grace as it relates to that. But the one thing when I talk about like nerding with Air Force stuff is just really trying to have an understanding. So my career field really helped with now that I'm not so focused just on my AFSC.
Right.
The work that we do day to day touches a lot of stuff around our clinic. And then so having an understanding of what everybody else is doing definitely played a part, I think. And then, man, we had a lot of like training courses, right? So I am out here researching and looking, and I think just kind of being curious enough to want to learn and continue to learn. So I went to a ton of stuff. Like AFPC had a course about Senior Enlisted Leader shirts and commanders.
Right.
We have a senior leader workshop within medical that they do every year. So did that. I read a lot.
Yeah.
And so just trying to stay abreast of what that looks like. I really am like, if I could do development stuff, like that was my job, I'd do this until they ripped me out of uniform. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Because like always, that has been the kind of difference maker in a lot of instances, right? Like figure out what people want and then you reach that. Like, okay, what do we have to do in the mission? What is it that you really want to do? And how do you make that happen? So I think I just tried to take that approach. I had a lot of tech sergeants that were working flight chief stuff for the first time, and so you learn. And then the mission out of Everest, man, like over the time frame that we were there, and to see, I think every aircraft that the Air Force has in the air, right? So they work all of the upgrading and testing and all of the things, like getting the experience at mission set and embodying that. It's the closest thing that I've had to the fighter wing stuff. Like test is its own beast. And very necessary, I'll say. But yeah, the SEL stuff, again, just good people. Group chief was great. Like there's a time frame where I think we just had a good group of people on the installation. And so it felt as close again to like, oh, we use the club regularly for lunch or events or just different things. And during COVID, especially, like we didn't go a year without doing the senior NCO induction, annual awards. Like we found ways to make that work. And it's the second freaking largest base in the Air Force, so y'all space, right? Yeah. But yeah, like that was definitely a pivotal assignment, I'll say. Probably one of my more I'm more thankful for Edwards than I am Lee, which is crazy to me.
So being here, you know, what are some things that you like? Because you know, you talk about at Edwards, the club is always being used, there's always events going on. You know, being here, what are some of the things that you think can? What are some of the things that you think can be done to kind of help build that camaraderie? Because I've been here since 23,
Yeah,
and you know, I hear from a lot of people.
yeah.
It's different here. It's a lot of civilians. It is not really strong of a military presence.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, so what do you think we can do to kind of, I don't know, to get people excited? I mean,
So, right, like in my seat, I struggle with that too to figure it out. Because in my career, what we've done is, and in every phase, right, like whether it was overseas, Randolph had 2 clubs, right? Like it's always going to be a focal point because it's easy to just gather, break bread, do stuff. Um, Food is central to a lot of what's happening. So we have the tap room, right? And while there's not food there, I think the opportunity to align stuff. Now, um, in an environment where how we did it before can't necessarily be how we do it now.
right.
And I say that with like things have changed, right? Like what our young folks want is like we didn't know what we wanted.
Right.
They were telling us what we wanted. You want this, right? And then so what our young folks want, I think, is it's important to know, right? What the NCOs need to do the job today is also a little different. So that assessment for like where it goes, but we also just got to be real. Like activity is going to require some work, and work at the levels that like servant leadership. I live it. I believe in it. But what is hard, I say, is if as a servant leader, like, hey, what is it that you would like to be done in spaces that just help cross-reference or cross-check how we get after mission set stuff, right? And you're like, well, something just don't feel right. Like, it's a hard space to move from. And so I just like to give like parameters, not super idea fairy or tone it down, but I like to offer folks suggestions of things that like work. And so when you hear and I bring folks in to do in process and stuff, I always talk about like if you don't see something happening, create it, right? And if you don't know how to do that, we'll start process and gather and get folks, talk to people, because you'll be shocked at who else might have some interest. And so I think our way back to build camaraderie is to have to be through curiosity. One of the things that, and I forget who said it because there's been a lot of people. Why private dogs exist, right? Like I think at a foundational level, like why do private dogs exist? A lot of folks will point really quickly to like, oh, big sales and volunteerism and all those kind of things. And then so my personal opinion is like it exists so it gives you a forum to know what cyber is doing, who's in CPTS, who's the person in FSX, and especially at the airman level. Like at Liddy, we got so much stuff done as airmen because I could pick up the phone to somebody at finance and get stuff done. Like, hey, I need this form back to have such and such unit. The network of just getting stuff done, and that was our focal point, right? Like we would socialize, but we build a network so that when you call over, like I ain't talking to just some random person. So it's almost like this backdoor space, like was able to get stuff done as an A1C senior, and sometimes that NCOs weren't able to get done because I know you. At Edwards, right? So from a senior NCO space, like, hey, we want to start doing tours and figure out like we do healthcare, but they don't know what's happening out there on the flight line because we're super far removed. I'm like, all right, well, just let us know when. hey, when you want to know, like, oh, what about Fridays? Like, all right, well, we can rotate people doing Fridays.
Right.
Now it's helping people to realize, like, okay, this is what's happening out there.
Yeah.
So you're not getting as much flack
Mhm.
if you are coming from literally like 20 minutes away in base
Yeah.
and you 5, 10 minutes late for an appointment. Like, all right, I know where you're coming from, I know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I think that becomes our space. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the space.
Mhm.
Excuse me, that's not skiff, that's not in that realm where like we can talk about it. And it'll be good for folks to know, like even the stuff that's happening around us.
Yeah.
You got all branches of the service either living on the base or involved in some way or fashion. But that central hub or connector, has to be something that exists. It gets real sleepy
Yeah.
after work,
It,
right?
it does. Yeah.
And then so we're waiting on something to push that is going to come from the top about how that happens, and like it's never worked that way.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah.
And so I think just having folks understand, like, man, command chiefs, colonel, like they've supported
Mhm.
tons of things. They've supported a lot of the stuff, but like getting things off the ground and moving, it's just been, NCLs, adrenaline emergencies, like it's been those spaces to get that going. So I think that's our opportunity.
Yeah.
Like the more and more we can connect, I think the better we get an understanding. And there's a lot of folks, there's probably been the base for like people who are from an area. And you hear all types of stuff, sleepy hands down, like it's a hidden quiet space, but that's not it in this environment.
Mhm.
And so I think that's where we have the best chance
Mhm.
of making it look like it should for our uniform folks, but also like you have a whole bunch of, civilian personnel who've done this, and can provide info, guidance, reflection, like, hey, we tried this thing during this time frame, and it worked well. So a lot of folks can pour in, but we just got to get somebody started.
I know you talk about networking. Do you feel that Air Force has prepared our young airmen to network? You know what I mean? Do you feel like they?
So I hate using like the Air Force.
Yeah.
Because like the enterprise is super broad.
Right.
But I think what's taking a hit, right, is we made it okay
Mhm.
during the course of COVID for a retreat
Mhm.
for, folks to kind of recluse. And then so now you're asking people who've gotten really comfortable with, I'm gonna do my own thing, mind my own business.
Yeah.
Right? That's just like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Who are now in the NCO space.
Mhm.
I do my thing and mind my own business. Hey, you gotta start digging. With this person, you gotta spend time. You're gonna have to do things. And so, without giving them the toolkit, it's like NCO, welcome to being an NCO. Most of ALS was really just about you gotta sit down and have a conversation with your airmen. You gotta know how to write certain things.
Mhm.
Like if you have to take command of a small group of folks, right? Like you gotta be able to move them strategically around. So they still had some of those things. And it feels old. It's not that long ago. And so I think, some of that we lost, right? Like we got away from really teaching, like, hey, as a staff sergeant, this is what this should look like.
Mhm.
As a technical sergeant, this is what this should look like. When I made master, like, okay, what are all the things that I need to know? Our command chief at the time, Chief Eisen, and that wasn't even my senior NCO induction. It was the one that we helped set up 5 years ago. Was talking about like senior NCOs need to spend money. And you need to understand budget and manpower requirements. And you know what the acquisition process looks like.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I need to know these things, right? Like, and so there's always, I think, somebody in the space to talk through kind of what's next and try to pull down information from headquarters, from all of these spaces to help accelerate kind of preparedness. And so our job is really to to continue to do that and leverage that. Again, like I think about like if I'm waiting on command chief or a chief to like feed it.
Yeah, it's not going. Yeah.
And we see that sometimes from folks. But then also like life just feels really complex.
Yeah.
For a lot of folks. And we have, just people struggling in a lot of different functions. Up here, especially when you think about like time, like for some people time is money. And I don't know how many people that like have second jobs. I got run into a lot of folks
Yeah.
in that instance just trying to get with it up here. So some things to address for sure. I think and just if we're talking I can't just tell you like, oh, build it, right?
Yeah.
Airman's time is super important.
Yep.
So how do I ensure you have the time to do that, right? How do I ensure that there's a balance between what is mission effective and then not risking any of the folks and people that we have on here?
So you were on the Mind Force podcast a couple of years ago, back in 23, and you talked about there are certain people in leadership positions that they don't have the personality. They don't have the personality to, like you said, to dig and spend time with the airmen, things of that nature. Do you think that's something that somebody can develop, or do you think you're just born with it?
Like to be smooth and the art of all that. Some people are
Yeah.
cool with that, right? But I think it really just starts with effort.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you try to build trust, like, okay, I might not be great at this interpersonal. You might be like, oh my God, you are messing this up.
Yeah.
But I think like what people can genuinely feel regardless is that you have your needs, right? Like you are in crisis, and so while you are in crisis, you really can't perform as you would as a supervisor. We find that too, right? People are responsible because on paper there's a section you have to do things, but while you are in crisis, like you can't be as effective.
Correct. Yep.
Which then goes back to as an airman, I saw a collection of NCOs just kind of do the things, right? Like as an NCO, I had a collection of people that like those vector checks. Like if it's not you today, like, or if you calling out my airman or something or whatever they did, like definitely let me know.
Yeah.
And if I'm missing something, then I'm gonna get right before I gotta go talk to my airman. And then so it was just that village. And I think personality wise, like what a lot of folks are just asking for is for you to care. Right? Like we don't have to necessarily be super
But yeah.
I just want to know that you care and put time and effort into what that looks like. I'm not a great writer.
Yeah.
But I've been grabbing and doing all of the stuff. Like supervisor just wants to know, like, man, you tried.
Yeah.
And so I think it's more that than folks having like the skill sets. Because some of this stuff you can craft. Right?
Yeah.
I think you talk about four lenses, right? Like if people evaluate, so if you super green gold, but then like in a leadership role, you have to have some blue with you because you got to cater.
Yeah.
You just gotta do that, right? Or also be upfront about like, hey, look, I am working on skill X. I would like for you to help me work on skill X. Talent. We talk talent management a lot, but like being able to identify the talent.
Yeah.
You have a knack for have conversations with people.
Yeah.
Man, it's not a huge skill set that I have. I would love to, and I'll get to a space to where like I can maximize it, but no matter what, like it's zero effort for you versus like, man, at my non-effort, I'm still not gonna get there.
Yeah.
And then leveraging that with folks like to be able to deliver whether it's bad news or connect so that folks can get through.
Yeah.
I think people have to humble themselves to know what they're good at, what they're not good at, and then the effort to cover down on it. So as long as they do that.
Do you feel people use it as like as a crutch? You know what I mean? Like you might have somebody who's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, they say they're not good at public speaking, only because they just try not to. They're trying to get out of doing
Right.
something.
And then so, I level of trust also with a lot of folks are like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like, man, you just need to sharpen the skill.
Yeah.
And so what's gonna suck right now is you're gonna give your first speech and it's gonna be trash.
Yeah.
You're gonna stand up in front of folks and it's not gonna land well right now.
Yeah.
We can always make sure that the message gets to wherever it needs to go.
Yeah.
No one, especially in these environments, like you can have charisma, you can do all the things, but you can be homework on a message is going to ensure that message lands 100% of the time, 100% of people.
Right.
But like you gotta give speeches
Mhm.
as a leader.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to talk to folks in big groups and crowds.
Yeah.
So if I tell you as an A1C, like, hey, this is coming, right? And now I designed ways for you to get there. Like, man, by the time you master started, you had a lot of practice, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've gotten over. I remember my first supervisor, Charles Gingrich, was like, "You're super quiet." Paul Sharper, who's up retired in Maine right now, was like, "Oh yeah, quiet, that's all right." Like, it's just, hey, I'm here, I'm doing the job, I don't have to say a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Great. And yeah, they weren't lying. Like, you got to get there.
Yeah.
Because especially if you care, like you're not gonna keep quiet
Mhm.
about things that need to happen and what needs to work for folks. So it'll be great if you have the skill rolling out. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's life easier, but
Yeah.
a lot of times you'll find folks crutch it and like, oh, I'm not good at that, and then so they just don't do it.
Yeah.
What is necessary, and we talk in leadership qualities and all those things. Like, big believer and component, I think, of identifying qualities versus what I've heard people say, like standard workload data.
Right.
All right, I'm a document that like I took care of all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a leader's role. Next person's gonna come in, and they're able to document that they took care of all of this stuff. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's more duty description than like where you are able to affect change. So the qualities and not necessarily just quantity of
Mhm.
what exists with folks is, do you see initiative? Can you walk through stewardship because you understand it?
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence can absolutely be a skill that you grow and develop.
So we have an amateur who doesn't, like, so you set forward that path, right? So let's say you have one who's a little resistant to the path. They don't want to go down that path. How do you, I guess, kind of, without forcing them,
Mm-hmm.
encourage them, like, hey, you better do this. Like, you need to do this because it's the betterment for you. It's just to benefit you.
So I think about, I just think about times where like people have hated
Mhm.
in the moment or in the process, like having to go through some stuff.
Yeah.
But I really go back to like how we started is you tell me what you want.
Right.
Big picture, like what is the end game? What is the end goal? What is it trying to get after?
Right.
And not to say I'm throwing it in your face later as we go through all of the things that kind of lily pad you there, but yeah, I'm gonna talk about you said you wanted to do these things.
Right.
And so I think that's important. If I'm starting to do some stuff and we haven't had that conversation,
Mhm.
that makes it a lot more difficult. If I haven't gotten any idea about what it is that you want to do, because it's still about the bridge.
Right.
Hey, I want to do underwater basket weaving.
Yeah.
We're in the Air Force. Not a lot of times we're gonna be operating underwater. So hey, the Navy has this program where like you go to find and connect, right?
Yeah.
And having a realistic conversation up front, like what you want to do,
Yeah.
and where we like, man, two different things. Either you're gonna spend a lot of time training and getting ready for underwater basket weaving,
Yeah.
or we're gonna have to get out of this mission set and
Yeah.
you leave that behind.
Yeah.
But also allowing folks allowing space to have people assess
Mhm.
where they are, and then ask open-ended questions too, like how do you think you are doing in the space?
Yeah.
Where are there opportunities that you think can better help you get to wherever it is you're going? Sometimes you'll be shocked at just what people are able to get back to you. I throw curveballs to supervisors a lot of times. Like,
Yeah.
when you're doing feedback, you know, ask them to be prepared to ask you a couple questions at the end of your feedback. You don't need to know what the questions are.
Yeah.
But have them be prepared to ask you. And then I ask supervisors or folks that, hey, let's sit down and spend some time. What books are you reading? Sometimes people are like, I'm not reading any books, okay? Just listening to any ebooks, podcasts. Like, where are you getting fed?
Yeah.
To try to grab some type of understanding.
Right.
So I ask people as well, like, hey, we sit down and we're newcomers or we're doing the in process and like, do you read? No. Do you listen to podcasts? No. Do you watch TV? Like, I'm just trying to feel like where are you feeding and getting information?
Yeah.
Because this helps me understand how to come. Like,
Right.
I've seen a lot of leaders who are like, hey, I'm a sports guy, so I'm using sports analogies in the whole room. It's just like none of these folks have played sports on land.
Yeah.
Right. And so as much as possible, just being able to diversify your analogy stories, where they're coming from.
Right.
I'm starting to feel like, oh, because then you just got like a lot of stories. So people ask questions and you're like, oh, there's a story.
Yeah.
But like they connect stuff from people.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Like, it moves things, I think, a little bit from theory to like some real world.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been a couple times where I'm like, nope, not that story. I'm not gonna talk about a story.
Right.
But I think that helps with like, hey, they're resistant to what you're trying to get them after, like, and you may have to adjust your approach over time. And it still happens.
Yeah.
Right. Like as a senior TO now, if you're talking to other senior TOs or NCOs, like some of these folks, like we've been doing this around similarly the same amount of time, and so beyond, you know, whatever we put on as far as the uniform, like what you start having a conversation, you know, person to person, like, what is it that you're trying to get after? The only job that I really have, right, like the SDL role is you're advising a lot of times in most spaces, but like the developmental side of the job is how can I help you? I don't have a job if you ain't here. If there's no enlisted members in the space, there's no senior enlisted leader. So to try to be as helpful as possible is the thing that works. I'm like the grandpa in a unit. You know what I mean? I get to do all the I get to do all the cool stuff. I get to do all the things that are like on the positive side,
Right.
You know, touch points moments where people aren't like, I'm not rolling around the building killing folks.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you enforce things and you build relationships with people to do that. But the approach isn't like get everybody in a room and tell you I gotta go to war. Because that's not what our team needs now. Right. But I need you to be ready for whatever's happening in our environment, because the team in this space or your teammates downrange are relying on you to be the best medic, lab tech, logistics guy as possible, and you could absolutely help decide, you know, wins and losses. So we're not saying anything different from the command chief, but the approach is different.
Right.
So yeah, long answer. Sorry.
No, you're good. I love that. I love that. So for somebody like you, you know, once you get to this level of leadership, you get to this rank, you know, and to make it as quickly as you did, making 16 years, what keeps you motivated? You know, what allows you to avoid the burnout of getting there as fast as you got there?
Like why when it clicked for me, why when it clicked for me as far as my career, and what I wanted to have impact on, why that happened as early as it did is I connected with kind of why we're here. And then you get to see good examples, right? First chief that I had as a group, or the first chief that I can remember, Simeon Williams, right? Like got him behind about like, hey, you taking 3 classes right now, and we in staff sergeant testing cycle.
Right.
I need you to focus.
Yeah.
Right. Now he didn't say that because he didn't think that I should have went to school or should have been doing school. He believed that I was going to squander an opportunity if I didn't study and take it serious to be a staff sergeant because he believed that I could be a staff sergeant.
Yeah.
Right. You find a lot of folks and run into a lot of folks that no one has believed that they can get to levels that they aspire to.
Yeah.
And that stuff is always inspiring. Like I encounter people all the time. And I'm like, yo, you know what? Like that's crazy. That's what's up. Like,
Yeah.
let me know whatever's happening or where you can help folks. Servant leadership is super like that. That's where I lead from, or I try to lead from. And so, from a burnout standpoint, like the purpose is to give back.
Yeah.
To allow folks opportunities to be, in places where I have information. Like if I'm at the table, like my lens is I'm trying to look around and see where do we not have representation as far as skill sets,
Yeah.
thought. Like I'm always looking at like, are we not well rounded in an avenue to bring our best?
Mm-hmm.
Where are there holes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an awesome space to be able to provide a voice for folks.
Right.
Not to be the voice, but to allow them the opportunity to do that. So I'm always looking at trying to like who needs to be heard. Doesn't always necessarily need to be me.
Last question, we'll wrap it up. What would you tell, knowing everything that you know now?
Man, I feel like I know where this is going. Okay.
What would you tell Robert Rivers back in June 2007 before he stepped on that plane to head to Blackman, Texas? Or maybe a couple of things you'll tell.
Stay focused. I think that's there's so many things that like pull, right? Stay focused, I think would definitely be one. Enjoy the moments would be another. There's a lot of stuff that I can reflect on now, right? Like, cause things have slowed down a little bit, but like while it was going on, you're just in it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I would definitely say that. One that like haunts me is probably not the right word, but
Yeah.
Go home. So I lost my dad in 2014 while I was at rehab.
Yeah.
And so my wife, like, right, she go home, or like, was the driver for us going home.
Right.
Because we're both from South Carolina. I think I went home more the beginning of 2014 than I did the 7 years prior. And so the amount of time that I got to spend with my dad, like in the state that he was in, thankfully, I got to spend some time. But the amount of time, I think, preceding that, where we could have done stuff, kind of places,
Right.
like some things you just kind of take for granted. So younger me would definitely went home more. I'd say that's probably the last thing.
Circles and all.
That's been great, man. Like, to go down memory lane, especially the way we started, like shoot, like a lot of stuff that happened. But I appreciate the opportunity. I like what you're doing here. I think it's needed, and so when we talk about like, hey, create something, a great opportunity to want to get to know what's happening around the space, to be able to broadcast what's going on in these spaces, and hopefully build something special out here where we can get more people involved.
Yes, sir. You heard that? It's a wrap, man. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.